Welcome to Aiken This Week. I'm Emery Langston. Today my guests are the members of the management team for our Public Works Department here at the City of Aiken. And we've seen a few changes and some restructuring in the department as well as some additions to our staff. So I'm very pleased today to have our new director, Michelle Jones, with us, as well as George Gritton, who is our Manager of Engineering and Utilities, and Tim Coakley, who is our Manager of Public Services. So thank you all for being here today to talk about the things that are on the horizon for our Public Works Department. Michelle, we're going to start our conversation off with you today. So as the newest member to the team and very new to the City of Aiken as well, tell us about yourself and the work that you did prior coming to the City of Aiken.
Sure, and first of all, thank you so much for having us. Very excited about being here and getting to share. What I did before coming to the city, I actually graduated from Georgia Tech, have a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering. At that time, right out of college, I was trying to stay in Atlanta. I wanted to work there, but ended up getting a job in Columbia, South Carolina for an engineering firm where I worked for about a year designing bridges on the Conway Bypass, bridges in Conway to Myrtle Beach. Then I went on to work for the Department of Transportation headquarters there in Columbia. And that ended up being a 17-year career where I pretty much started out in bridge design, kind of worked my way up to bridge project management. From there, they had several different training programs. They had what was called a STAR program. It's an acronym, but it basically allowed you to learn about other areas in the agency and not just you could kind of cross-train, but it was PowerPoint type training.
Sure.
But from there, I went on and got into program management, and that was basically what I found to be my niche and my joy, working with people and having the opportunity to see the project development process, the entire process, not just a bit or a piece of a puzzle. So that I enjoyed very much.
So from beginning to end, that project management, not just having okay, you're going to work on this aspect of this very large project, but from beginning to end.
Yes.
So you come with a lot of experience, the private sector, very well established in the public sector. What would you say has prepared you the most for this position that you have come into?
I think I had 14 years of project management experience with DOT, and the last position I had before coming to the city was I actually was a lead program manager for the Lower Savannah COG, or Council of Government, and the Arts, or Augusta Regional Transportation Study area of the state. And Aiken is part of that region. And so I managed projects like the Silver Bluff Corridor, Hitchcock Parkway. I was the lead manager on the downtown York Street wooden bridge replacements that are being replaced as we speak. One of the things with that project in particular, I got to work very closely with, because there was such an extensive public involvement process. We actually met several times with key stakeholders, such as the Design Review Board. We also I had to come before City Council to request municipal consent for that project. And meeting with the mayor, Rick Osborne, and my boss, John Clem, getting to meet with him. George Gritton and I and John Poole, our city manager, worked extensively on Silver Bluff with the utility coordination efforts. So I think that position it was almost like a natural progression. Sure. So I was very much excited to come here and already being familiar with a lot of the area.
What a wonderful transition to
Yes.
have worked on that side of it and then to come into your new role.
Yep.
So that worked out really well. Well, tell us about your new role. Tell us about your new role and the consolidation that's happened with Public Works.
Sure. Essentially, what once was engineering and utilities and public services is now Public Works. The goal there was to improve the operational efficiency of the Public Works Department and the city as an organization. So as part of that change, our senior management staff, their titles changed. So I want to introduce our two senior management staff individuals that are here with me today. George Gritton is now our engineering and utilities manager. Thank you for being here, George.
You're welcome.
And Tim Coakley is now our public services manager. Thank you, Tim, for being here.
Yep.
And I've got to say, they have been tremendous since I've been here. Just very helpful, very accommodating. It's a lot to take in. It's a different dynamic. So I appreciate their support very much. And we've got a big staff, about 130 employees for the two departments. So now that we've come together. But in terms of my role, I don't want to say that we've added a layer because it's not that simple.
Right.
But I think what we have done is made an attempt to help those that are currently, the wheels were already turning, help them to continue to be able to dig in and do what they do. And possibly I can free them up in some of the more administrative tasks that would otherwise bog them down.
Sure. Well, you mentioned that, the goal is, and everything that you've just talked about is the efficiency and having that on operationally, the whole 9 yards. So what are some of the key areas that you've identified to help accomplish this goal?
There are 5 what I call focus areas that we are looking at as part of a needs assessment, if you will, to try to get our heads around ways that we can improve what we already have. Because sometimes it's a knee-jerk to think you've got to go grab and you actually have what you need. It's right under your nose.
Yes.
So the first area is resources. And that's just, things like the employee is our most valuable resource. So we want to make sure, in terms of staffing levels and equipment and all of the things that the employee needs to be able to successfully do their job that they have. Also cross-training opportunities, professional development opportunities, those types of things. The other focus area is workload, and that's just assessing what do we have on our plate? What are we responsible for? So then we can know how best, if we're short and need additional resources to address those things. Number 3, project prioritization and scheduling. And that's just, it's self-explanatory. We've got projects. We've got projects that have to get developed and delivered. And there has to be a schedule, so we can't just operate without knowing a time frame.
Sure.
So identifying those needs and then assigning schedules. Organizational structure and operational efficiency. That area is, again, getting back to why we came together in the first place.
Right.
So right now, we have an organizational structure that works well, but we have had several meetings and are looking at areas, for example, to say, perhaps, hey, do we need to have our geographical information systems or GIS that staff, should that be under our umbrella of Public Works? Should that be perhaps serving in another area where it can serve the entire city, which it does now, but just that might make more logical sense. Things like that. And then lastly, performance-based metrics. And that's just being able to measure success. What does success look like? And, something as simple as when we get a phone call, what is our metric to say that we did a good job? Is it calling them back in a day or next week? So that type of thing is what we're looking at as part of that process to help improve.
Those are very specific, and really drilling down into the areas that, you were talking about the project management. Y'all all have projects, and it's amazing to me the load that you do have. But if they're not, if you don't sit down and say, okay, and I know that you bringing these two divisions together and looking at everything, it's very eye-opening. But what a plan to move forward and make it more efficient. So
we're trying.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure everything will need to be tweaked a little bit, like you were saying. But what a good plan that y'all all have in place to do that. So over the past year, we've talked a lot in the city about infrastructure. That has been, one of the things. We have several things that the city's been talking about, but infrastructure has really come to the forefront, and the need for that, and it's a real area of focus. So what is your plan to meet the immediate need that we have in infrastructure, as well as looking at the future?
Right. Well, I would say, infrastructure, most people, when they think of infrastructure, at least I'll speak for myself, I'm thinking of roads and bridges because I came from DOT. However, the infrastructure that the city and that Public Works that we're responsible for is actually majority things that you cannot see with the naked eye. It's underground. We have our water, our sewer systems, our stormwater. All these pipes are underground. So it's important that we have an understanding or make sure that we are educating the public and that we're taking the initiative to know, okay, what's going on with these systems that we can't see ourselves. And part of what we're doing with that, the city has purchased, and this is prior to my coming on board, an Innovise system that will allow, it's a geographical information system or GIS software program that will allow us to be able to take pictures and generate data on things like pipes. And for example, one of our water distribution system, I'll use as an example, we have what's called an LOC, which is likelihood of failure, or LOF, which is likelihood of failure, and a consequence of failure. And then we have other pieces of information that we assign data to each of these infrastructure pipes. And I don't want to get down in the weeds too much on that, but I'm saying all that to say we're in the process of generating a bunch of data to help us to be able to then, on a map, be able to identify critical problem areas and prioritize these projects is ultimately what they would be, and identify the funding and the need, and then be able to go in and address it. And the consequence of failure is pretty serious when you think about, we've got one map, and George can expound on this if he wants to, but we've got one map that shows downtown is like, it looks just like a bloodbath. The red indicates a critical need. And so what that says is if the consequence,
Right.
if that were to fail,
There was a failure
Right.
in that area.
correct, we got a problem. And so the power of having the GIS is a huge benefit for what we're trying to accomplish with regards to our infrastructure, identifying and prioritizing our infrastructure projects.
Sure, just another way to try to be more efficient with the systems that we have. And I imagine that area there, that's the oldest infrastructure. Would that be true?
It is. The downtown area actually was supplied with water for the first time in 1911, and so it was the downtown structure area. It's cast iron pipe. That cast iron pipe is actually in very decent condition. It's the valves that were installed to, allow for cutoff of sections for repair and that sort of thing that are the real problem. It's a risk every time you operate them, whether they're going to actually perform, one, cutting off the water, or two, not start leaking. And so, and it's also an area, the Innovise software gives you the ability to do risk analysis. And one of the risk analyses that we do has to do with valve pounding. And what it does is it examines the number of valves you have to cut off for any particular segment of pipe and how many people will be affected by that. And we're finding that there's downtown area over 50 homes that would be, cut off if you had a break here, and then if you weren't successful at shutting the valves, which occasionally we do have problems with, then it would be even more, and it grows. So what this has allowed us to do is look at that's an area where we want to focus some water valve control projects, and that is also the area then that has the oldest sanitary sewer pipe. The vitrified clay pipe that was installed is actually good pipe, but over the years you have tree roots, you have joint problems, and so that's the area that we're looking at doing a grouting program. It actually would be a 2 or 3 year project to complete, but once it's done, it will have rehabilitated the joints. Any cracks or breaks would have been repaired. Manholes would be rehabilitated so that you don't have a lot of either groundwater or rainwater coming in. Eliminate the I&I. That I&I steals capacity from the sewer lines.
Right.
Any water that comes in as a result of groundwater or rain is just a waste. So having the integrity of those systems
Sure.
are very important. So as Michelle was alluding to it, the Innovise database management system has done the risk analysis to show us where our biggest risk factors are. And this is something that we update continuously. As we get more information, we're able to store it with our GIS. The better GIS information we have, the better it can analyze. And so it's a live analysis.
Right.
Every year we will do it, we will update it to accumulate all the information that we have from the year effort. And this year we did quite a bit of data input. We did some modeling with sewers. We did some research of the hard drawings that we have, so that all that data was put into the GIS, and we've actually downloaded everything that we have in our computer, in our drawing files, into the GIS computer, so that when the analysis is done, it can be the most accurate.
Well, George, I know that you and I have talked about this system
Yep.
back in the summertime, and I think it's truly fascinating and probably something that we could visit a whole show talking about. but how reassuring is it that we are taking these steps and looking? I mean, that is an immediate need, and that is a future need.
Yes.
So it's really a fascinating system, and
Yes.
so wonderful that we have that. Now, y'all have Public Works has a work session with City Council coming up on December 12th. So can you talk just very briefly about what that's going to be and what's going to be presented at that meeting?
Yes, we're going to update council on the risk analysis. We're going to let them know, how it has changed from the last time that they saw what we've looked at. We're also going to share with them some of the projects that we're proposing to actually do the remediation, the valve program, like I was talking about with water, the grouting project. We've also done a little bit of stormwater analysis, and we're starting to see where some of our higher risks are for that. So we'll be putting that together to, I guess you could say, at a state of the infrastructure evaluation, so that, and then a rough idea of costs for rehabilitation. The grouting actually is it's probably 25% the cost of replacement. So if we can do as much grouting as possible, it extends the life anywhere from 25, 30 to 50 years, depending on how the quality job that gets done. So implementing it will be very, very important. But these are the types of things that we'll be talking about, so that council can plan for the future.
Right. Well, I mean, that has been very much a topic that has come up with our council. So y'all are doing some fantastic things to bring that information and to give them as much information as they can when they start the decision process on whatever may need to happen with that. So another area, I want to touch on this real quick, another area that that has been of discussion is the Whiskey Road corridor. I know that there was a symposium recently on that here at the municipal building, and can y'all just briefly touch on what the city's role is with that?
Sure. I'm actually a member of the advisory committee. We've got a meeting coming up in about 2 weeks. The Aiken County became the lead of this activity, and it's to look at the Whiskey Road corridor from South Boundary all the way to New Ellington. So there are parts that run through the city, and so what we've done as a committee is we developed an RFQ for a consultant to come in and do the work, and then as a group, as a team, we evaluated which consultant we thought would do the best job. From a city's role perspective, we're providing them with the detailed information. What is the economic development areas that we are aware of that they need to plan for future growth? We have provided them a level of service and kind of some of the statistical information that we gather concerning traffic activities. And then we've also provided them with stormwater, flooding, those types of known problems and areas that we have. So that helps the consultant, do the analysis. The symposium was the consultants, one of their efforts at reaching out to the public to get their input for what are the problems and what they'd like to see the corridor look like, how should it serve the public. And so it was actually quite detailed evaluation, and they gave you little clickers that you got to vote on, and this, that, and the other. Then you saw immediately the results. So it was just like the political season. it was
in real time.
It was kind of fun.
Well, anytime you can get that interactive,
Yes.
that's always a lot of fun. Well, let's switch gears for a minute and tell us about the new recycling program that was approved by City Council at the November 14th meeting, and I believe that's going to have a launch in January?
Yeah, January 9th is when we're going to start, and it's kind of exciting. It's a large change for our recycling program. We are switching to every other week collection for recycling. So between now and January 9th, everybody will be notified by a sticker that's going to be placed on their recycling card. They'll either get a red sticker or a blue sticker, and then there's a corresponding calendar that will tell them to follow the red weeks or the blue weeks. And it sounds a little confusing, but it's going to be very simple because all of the neighborhoods are the same. You know, all your neighbors will be doing the same thing.
Sure.
So it won't be like every other house is red and blue. It's all the reds will be together. So it'll be pretty obvious what's going on. But we've studied how much recycling was in the carts over the last few years, and most of the time they're only about half full. So that allows us to come every other week and save quite a bit of money. We'll be able to shut down one of our trucks and reassign some people that are going to help us in the garbage area where we lost the inmates last year. And so it's an exciting time for us, but we think it's going to be a pretty smooth transition. And they can always call the Public Services office, you know, my office at 642-7613 if they need more information. And we'll be out evaluating like who needs larger carts. If they have any type of overflow, we're asking them to just bag it and put it beside their cart for right now. And our staff will be out evaluating, you know, where the overflow issues are, and we'll get people some larger carts. We're also going to do a large amount of education on things that are and aren't recyclable. We still see a lot of things like styrofoam, which is not really recyclable. The dirty pizza box, you know. We try to not have that stuff collected.
Well, and Tim, this was interesting to me. Y'all have always done a phenomenal job in your division of getting information out about the recycling and the importance of it and what you are supposed to recycle and not recycle. But that is a very interesting thing. So could you go talk about that just for a second, why we can't recycle those pizza boxes?
Yeah, well, the quality wouldn't be any good at the recycling plant, and they want high quality. They're trying to reuse this stuff, and the quality's down if it's got grease on the cardboard and stuff like that.
The residue.
Right. So they only want clean items and only certain items. I mean, everything would be recyclable at some point, including the styrofoam and things like that. But it's not one of the things that our recycling partner, Dumpster Depot, they only collect certain items that they can bail up and that there's a good market for sale. So yeah, we don't want any contaminated cardboard or anything like that mixed in there.
So that was a very interesting point to me when I got my last bit of education. So we make sure that we do what we're supposed to do. Are there any other changes that are coming to the to solid waste, to the collection services that we need to know about?
Sure, we've got a couple other things that are going on. One is we're going to start focusing on carts being left out at the curb longer than they should be. There's an ordinance on the city code that says you can't leave it out more than a day before or a day after your collection day. And in some areas, people leave them out all week long, and we're going to start focusing on stopping that. It makes the neighborhoods look bad. It makes the city look kind of junky. So that's one thing we're going to start focusing on. And then we're also looking at auditing our yard trash collection system. We have an extensive yard trash collection group, and we're looking at maybe putting some limits on how much can be hauled and when and things like that. It hasn't actually gone to the council yet, but we see on the horizon that if we try to keep our rates level where they're at now, $17 a month, that we may have to make some changes. And that's a direct result of the why we did the recycling the way we did.
Right.
We're trying to save money and hold that rate at $17.
Sure.
So we hope to be coming to council, in the next couple months with some options for them to look at.
Very good. I know your guys work tirelessly on those trucks, and
especially this time of year, but the leaves coming down.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, they're working plenty of overtime.
So, but always you do a fantastic job.
Well, thank you.
Lots to be proud of in Public Works. You've got a phenomenal staff, and lots of really good things always on the horizon. So, as we're coming to a close, I know we probably didn't get to talk about everything that we wanted to talk about today. That just means that y'all are going to have to come back and update about different programs that are going on. But anything that we need to touch on real quick before we close today?
The only thing I would say, everybody loves the alley, that project. I know I do.
Oh, it's wonderful.
And we are planning to put up the new gateway fixtures. It's supposed to happen next month, in the month of December.
Okay.
So something on the horizon.
Very good, and that will bring that project to a completion. Is that?
That is
Yes,
correct.
basically that'll have it completed.
So, but during the holiday season that's coming up, saw all of the lamp posts down the alley were beautifully decorated, and just such a neat thing to have for our downtown area for this holiday season. So, I want to thank you all so much for coming today and speaking with us. And if you have anything that you would like to talk to our Public Works Department about, don't hesitate to give them a call. They can be reached at 803-642-7610. And we thank you for joining us today for Aiken This Week, and we'll see you next time.